Hello, dear perceptive souls. This is Bevan Neiman. You are a life purpose coach and mentor. I specialize in working with intuitive empaths, light workers, and conscious leaders. I help you discover a life that lights you up, and I help you to thrive while you serve. And today's topic, today's reading topic, is so pertinent to exactly what we're talking about. As I look out into the world and I sense into this collective energy, I pull forward these various themes that I see spiritual, wellness, holistic practitioners, entrepreneurs struggling with, and really try to provide some advice, some insight into what's happening in that collective energy. And for those of you who are empathic, you're probably picking up on so much right now, and it can be a really intense time. So hopefully this is a way to just allow that energy and invite that to flow through us, rather than be holding it and feeling like you're responsible for it, because we're not. But what I want to talk about today, and this is the theme that actually came up over and over and over as I was out there on social media and sensing into meditation. And by the way, happy Earth Day. Even though these videos are recorded on a certain day, they are universal archetypes. So anytime that you come across it and it resonates with you, this message is yours. But I do want to acknowledge a very happy Earth Day. And I spent some time out in the forest by my home today doing some drumming, getting my feet in the soil and in the moss and just really tuning in. And so this is a time of renewal. And part of this renewal and part of this healing for us is around this concept of failure, right? So for those of us who are thinking, I want to put myself out there in the world, I want to use these gifts to help others. It's time for me to kind of step in and show myself and really show who I am as an empathic, intuitive soul. And yet there's this process and this influence, if you will, from our greater culture that tells us, brings in that shadow of a doubt, or that really large shouting voice of doubt. What if you fail? What if nobody wants what you have to offer? What if you can't make a living doing this? What if you're not good enough? What if you're not ready enough? And we all have these voices inside our head, and it really doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. That imposter syndrome, that voice comes up, right? And this is not only a problem for spiritual and holistic practitioners, it is a problem for everyone. And in some ways, it's the way our society has kind of set up our value and our self-worth. And it's how we've collectively decided to connect around those concepts. And so the first card we come into is the Two of Air. And the Two of Air is this dichotomy, right? This duality. So with duality, there's something on this side, which is success, whatever that looks like, right? We're going to talk about that here shortly. And then there's like failure, and there's really nothing in between. It's just this dividing line, right? And there is some activation here at the heart chakra. But boy, there is a worried look on his face. Like, if I put myself out there, which part of me is going to be represented? It feels like a huge risk. It feels like a huge undertaking, to do this, to bring yourself out into the world and show who you are, and, kind of uncover your face a little bit and say, yeah, here I am. And are you going to make it, right? Now, this could also be polarity. And the reason I like polarity better than duality is that polarity is a spectrum, a continuum, if you will. And on one side might be whatever your version of success is, and on the other side might be whatever your version of failure is. And there's all these infinite little pieces and parts along the way, different steps, right? So let's talk through this for a moment. I was in high school, elementary school, college, in my 20s and 30s. I was a type A personality. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, that is a personality who is very ambitious, very driven, works a lot of hours, always wants to do the right thing, do a little bit more, do a little bit more. I was very, very driven by this. very driven by this idea of success. I came from, and I mean no disrespect to my parents, because there's no better or worse than value for me with people who have more money and have less money. But I came from very humble financial circumstances. We lived in a little small cabin, my mom and I, and we didn't even have indoor plumbing. We had an outhouse in the back. And I'm telling you that it's really cold in Michigan in the winter to go out and use the bathroom. So you go quick, and as I got into say middle school, age 12, 13, 14, I started to realize some of my friends' families had a lot more money than we did. They had more things. They were able to buy nicer clothes. They were able to do these. And you start to get these messages of shame, right? People might have that based on the color of their skin. People might have that based on their gender. People might have that based on, what comes easy for them or what doesn't come easy for them academically. There's lots of ways that we weigh, are we as good as other people, right? And I don't know if you can really see it in this card. But as soon as cameras are more widely available online, because like everyone wants one right now, I want to get a nicer camera. But you can see there's this scale and this balance, right? So this balance, it's like I'm weighing myself against others, whether that's your body image and you're like, do I look as nice as others? Do I have as fit of a body? Do I drive a nice car? There's lots of ways that we judge. Psychologists actually call this ranking, right? It's like we rank ourselves in comparison to others on all kinds of factors. And most of these factors, as I've come to understand it, are pretty arbitrary. So all these voices that I had inside my head about, was I good enough? Could I get these great grades, get a scholarship to college, which I did, get this great job, buy a home, and like move beyond like where my parents had come to. It was all a value judgment that was based on superficial aspects, right? Superficial aspects. And yet this is what most of our society has been based on. And where we find ourselves right now, when so many people are unemployed, out of work, staying at home. So many parents are, working to do homeschooling, when so many people are losing their jobs either to technology or to the world economic system right now. There's a leveling of this playing field, right? And there's at no other time since I've been observing this, more support for diversity, diverse ideas, diverse experiences, different ways of being, different philosophies, whether that's religious or political. And yes, we still go, and we still have this duality, right? This is a very black and white, literally thinking. My way is right, your way is wrong, my way is better, your way is less than. And this is what we are emerging out of. And there's just been so much going around out there about failure and our fears around failure. It's like, what happens if the entire economic system fails? Okay, well, then as human beings, we collectively have to work on a different kind of solution. And what does that show us? It shows us that maybe it wasn't exactly where it needed to be in the first place, or what happens when we discover that the way that we've been intersecting with Mother Earth and gathering resources from her is not working. What's happening when there's climate change and the rising of temperatures and the deforestation. Okay, that's not working. So I want to provide this idea. Just think about this for a moment. What if there was no wrong choices? What if everything that we chose on an individual level, on a collective level, led us down a particular path, a particular road, and we of course, have consequences as a result of that. We have individual consequences, we have collective consequences, and yet part of that's that learning process. So we get so focused on this outcome. And really, this is that masculine energy. And I am not in any way denigrating the masculine energies on our planet. I have masculine energy within myself. This is the part of ourselves that wants to protect and provide and acquisition and create and to make things happen and to hold space and to, build and do these things. And that's great, right? So I've stayed in this energy. This is actually the Father card. So it's like a card of responsibility, having a lot of weight on your shoulders. You see him kind of like there and hunched down. And there's others that he's responsible for, that he needs to hold that light and be that powerful being. Well, right now we're just not, right? And this masculine energy in its fullest form has sort of taken over the ideals of how we deal with each other, how we deal with business, how we deal with our environment. And we need some of that, don't get me wrong, but there isn't a lot of room here for the feminine, which is the nurturing and the supporting and the focus on community and family and ecosystems and the connectedness, right? There's no connectedness here between these two beings. It's like they're just separate, right? Or one is more like subservient to the other. And we're moving out of this role. We're moving out of this role where success and failure means that one person has to be higher and another person has to be lower. And the person who's lower does everything that they can to make this person grow. Really leadership goes the other direction, is here are all the people and leaders come up underneath and say, how do I uplift you? How do I support you? How do I help you to grow and to find your fullest potential? So what's happened is that for so long, we have looked outside of ourselves. We've been looking on the outside. Here we are in all of our vulnerability, looking for some kind of outside force to help us feel good, to help us feel worthy, to help us feel valued, to be up there on the ladder, to gain that strength. And yet, when we start to gain that strength from within, when we begin to realize that we are, just by our presence here on this planet, each one of us, every sentient being, every living, breathing thing is valuable just because it is. Then there is no concept of success and failure, right? There is just the cycles of life. So we go through a cycle of rebirth. This is almost like a fetal position here in all of the nakedness, and it's almost like this rebirth, right? This reopening, and it's a recognition that all of the things we've been striving for, whether that's likes or followers or any of these kinds of things, other people's attention and all of this stuff, it really is an empty bottle. We could drink from it forever and never be satiated. And I know, because personally, I drank from that bottle for a very long time. That bottle of like consumption and achievement and more, and I need more, and I need to make more money, I need to have more money in the bank, and I need to be investing and doing these things. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But I didn't have it in moderation. I didn't know how to come into that space in between. It was either starvation and fear and scarcity, or I'm going to gather as much as I can and I'm going to be successful, and look, people are going to recognize that I'm successful, and look, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. And when we come into this center place and we come from within and we honor our successes from within, we recognize that nothing really has to be done here. That doesn't mean we don't need to take actions. Doesn't mean we don't need to show up, but it's because we want to. I do these videos because this calls to my soul. I feel you, whoever's sitting on the other side of the camera, all of you. I feel you listening. I feel you taking this message in. I feel you seeking for ideas, inspiration, something to spark your intuition. That's why I get up. That's why I do these. That's why I turn on the camera. Some people write, some people teach, some people heal, some people, invent. It's about being passionate about what you do. And it's about looking out there into the collective and saying, how do I take what I'm passionate about, what just lights me up? And how do I intersect that with what people need and what they're asking for? And how do I connect with others and build relationships in order to bring that out to a larger group of people who can benefit? And then how do I graciously receive in exchange without it being about a transaction, without it being about success and failure, without it being about ranking or a judgment, right? It's not about any of that. But we've been taught, and boy, I did a lot of this, that we need to sacrifice. We need to sacrifice our time, our attention, our energy, our money, our talents. We need to sacrifice in order for a small number of people to have a life that lights them up, that nurtures them, that supports them, that feels safe. And I'll say this to you, is that I've met quite a few people who are very wealthy, and that does not mean that they feel any more secure or safe than you do, even if you have $100 in the bank or you're living on the street. It's all about the inner mindset. But when we feel like we always have to sacrifice, we have to sacrifice our soul for the almighty dollar. We have to sacrifice our soul for someone else's success. I finally just said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm also not going to sacrifice my soul for my success, right? My success is this journey. My success is learning how to be a better teacher. My success is understanding and doing my own inner work. It's about going outside and putting my feet in the moss and drumming and seeing where in my body that there was tension and tightness, and where did I feel like I was holding all of this responsibility. Like, if I've been working on this business now for 4.5 years, like, what if in this economy it just fails? What if I can never do it again? I'm like, okay, well, I would get back up and I would do something I love. Like, we understand that safety and security, that feeling of enoughness, comes from within. And I love the Six of Cups. Look at this beautiful card. Look at the empathy in her eyes. And it may be a little harder to see, but she's actually extending out this bracelet with a heart, right? It matches her heart here. And this is all about self-compassion for compassion for yourself, compassion for others. It's about understanding that we all falter, that we all have difficult days when we spiral down into an emotional depth, right? The cups are the water energy. We all have days where we look out into the collective and go, okay, how do I define myself? How do I define success? I'm looking outside of myself for that. We all have days where we feel this heavy weight of responsibility, or we have days when we feel like the one who's submissive and needing to uplift another. We have days where we just feel like it's either or. Either I'm going to do this thing full on and be successful and be wealthy and be admired, or I can't do it at all, right? We all have these days, and this invites us to say, okay, this is a part of the human condition. This idea, this exploration we're having about success and failure and what that means is a part of the human condition. And everything that's happening right now is coming up to demonstrate what we need to know about that. So I wanted to pick a final card of the Earth Warriors Guidebook. This is, I think, really appropriate for Earth Day today. And we have Palik Mana, the medicine of the butterfly Kachina. She's come up recently. Beautiful cards. Just love this activation. Obviously, a great deal of transformation here. You can see that there is balance here. There's balance here, all the way up and down through the chakra system, in a way that there's not balance here. Right? So this is the sacred feminine coming in, the nurturing, the transformation. This is the fearful part of ourselves that feels like we're never going to have enough or be enough. We're never going to be able to get there. It's either success or failure. So let me read just a little bit about the butterfly Kachina medicine, because I think it's super important. An apparently lost cause or a shattered dream was a necessary part of your transformational journey. What was sacrificed cannot be reborn into something, what was sacrificed can be reborn into something even more beautiful. You are not meant to turn to the past, as it cannot support you in the way it once did. Trust that you have the inner resources to handle what is happening within you and in your life. You are moving towards a significant psychological, emotional, and perhaps also physical breakthrough and transformation. You may have an inner sense of discomfort, signaling that something new is unfolding. It is natural to initially feel a little awkward or uncertain in the face of the unfamiliar. This is a good sign of change stirring from within. Allow nature to take its course. Trust in what is happening, even while you don't understand it. It will turn out beautifully in the end, which will also happen to be a new beginning. And you do not have to regret anything that has happened. You do not have to judge yourself or any other or wish that things had been different. You have not missed out. You have not messed up. You have been learning and growing. What is required from you now is a willingness to let it fall away, because the person you once were no longer exists. You may not fully realize it yet. Like the butterfly trying to crawl on the ground like a caterpillar, you may mourn the loss of your old caterpillar ways. Yet if you take a moment to witness yourself anew now, you'll realize you are not the person from 2 years or 10 years ago, or what I'll say right now is 2 months ago, right? You can then open to the gifts that the butterfly Kachina is bringing to you now: well-being, new life, vibrancy, freedom, and happiness. So this ties in really all of what we've talked about today. We can either start to succumb to that fear of failure, have fear that will never be enough, that fear that coming out and showing who we are and bringing our gifts into the world is dangerous. It's a risk. It's something that we just don't know how we're going to be able to do it. And that's okay, because we all falter. I can't even tell you how many videos I made before I finally started to become comfortable with just getting on and doing these readings. At the very beginning, I used to edit every single pause. I wanted them to be perfect. I wanted to have the lighting perfect and my hair perfect and all these things. And I still try to show up in a professional way, but I'm trying to be authentic. I'm trying to just show you that you can get started. If you are a practitioner, if you are someone who's been dreaming about leaving that corporate job that no longer serves you, if you are a person who's saying, I really have this healing gift, I want to be able to serve, and I know that I can do this, but I'm just a little nervous. I feel scared of that possibility of failure, of not being able to do it, not being able to make money at it. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee, there's a lot of coaches who will guarantee, like, you're going to make 6 figures and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. I can't guarantee that. And the reason is because it's all dependent upon what you put into it. And it's all dependent upon what's going on in the world around us. So you can want all of the things that you want, and you can work on that and you can manifest that. And then we have to be adaptable and we have to flow and we have to come to a middle ground. If we hold this space, it could be either this or that. And if I don't get this thing on the side, this white, this beautiful light activation, I have failed miserably. Then we actually have kind of failed before we even started, right? It's time for you to look within. It's time for you to recognize that you have what you need. Everything you've done in your whole life has prepared you to be here right now. And this butterfly Kachina energy says, you are no longer the caterpillar. Look at you. You're this huge, badass, iridescent, multifaceted, multidimensional being who's tuned in and tapped in. And it's time to lend your gifts on this planet in whatever way you feel called to do that. So if this excites you, I do offer single session life purpose coaching. So you can get that in the description box below. I am also the co-founder of 1millionempaths.com, which is a global sanctuary for deep thinkers with huge hearts who want to make a difference in our world. Come on in and meet other like-minded empaths and light workers just like you. master your gifts, and amplify your work. That's what we're here for. I thank you so much, my friends, for joining me for this reading, and like and subscribe my channel. It helps this message to grow. I'm so happy for those of you who continue to tune in, and I will be with you soon again. Namaste, my friends.